Look at that. We're live.
Hello.
I'm back again.
Well, you're the unofficial guest host.
That just means you know that I work from home and I'm conveniently available more often than I am not.
Yeah, but everyone loves you.
I mean, not everybody.
No, I mean Derik is controversial among the fan base. A lot of people like him a lot, and there's always a few people who are like
Everyone
Derik gave
him.
a hot take on this one that is kind of enraging, and I'd say he's controversial.
I've got that Howard Stern energy, Steven, that we talk about. The very very polarizing.
Wasn't what they found out about Howard Stern
Yes.
that the people who really liked him watched him a lot, and the people who really didn't like him watched him even more?
Yes, that was 100% correct.
Yep.
That's actually correct. Unfortunately, that's why everything is so negative, because it turns out that negative engagement is more powerful than positive.
I prefer positive engagement.
Well, like yesterday we did a stream up at the studio, and me and Bob and Aaron from the channel we're talking about. Michael Sayer did like a quick preview of what some of the changes are to the Ranger, and we went over it and we talked about some of the problems that we think exist in the Ranger, and then Michael Sayer was like, "Oh, these are some of the things that we're changing while we're changing it," and we're all like, "Yeah, these are great changes. I think these will make the class a little bit more fun and maybe a little bit more dynamic, and we'd like to see more." And I'm a big fan of spellcasting rangers, so I'm glad that they're kind of keeping that, and kind of not you don't have to be a spellcasting ranger, but anyways, and like some people were like, "Oh, they were so negative about it." I was like, "No, what? No, we liked this. This was good. I liked the remaster. I'm excited for the changes. Like, yeah, you've had the game in your hands for 4 years. Yeah, you're gonna make some changes. You've kind of kick the tires a little bit. But you can't, again, you can't please everybody. So, oh well. Anyway,
So before we start, a whole bunch in 1 week. We were just talking about everything that's happened.
We did a lot in a week.
Okay, we released in 1 week. We released World of Battle Zoo Indigo Isles for Pathfinder, which is something like 284 pages.
And then the 300-page one for 5e.
And then the 302-page one for 5e on the same day, no less.
Wait a second. The 5e one is longer?
It always is.
Yeah, because the backgrounds in 5e take like a huge amount of space.
Well, actually, the races. Yeah,
the backgrounds are in the races.
Right, the backgrounds.
That is why they're longer. Like, it is entirely on the back of the 5e backgrounds. That's what it is.
Okay.
You know what? I'll get to that in a second. And then we released Gremlins for 5e and Pathfinder on Saturday for Year of Monsters, which this is what happens every month. For those of you who are like, I'm not that interested in Year of Legends, or I only am interested in one or two of the Ancestries, everyone's like, oh, I'm not that interested in Gremlins. And then sure enough, everyone's like, oh my God, Gremlins is my favorite one. And it's like, just be open to new ancestries.
It's not always the same people.
No.
Well, no,
sometimes it is.
No,
sometimes it is.
I'm not saying it's the same people. I'm just saying people would be amazed at like finding out, because we are always trying to do weird things with the ancestry. So it's not like, oh, they just took a dwarf and reskinned them. We're like, weird stuff is in there.
And let me be clear about something about this. I would be the first to admit that I will never play a gremlin. But I have a dwarf. I have an elf. Right. I don't need a slightly reskin. Oh, this one's from the elemental plane of fire, but it's a dwarf. I like that. I appreciate design choices where it's like, we want to do something different. We want to I still think your doppelganger is such a fantastic design. So it's like I like it when people go, yeah, like, we're going to make this ancestry feel, act, play differently at the table. It's going to look different, but it's also going to play different, and it's going to have a different feel to it. And so, I'm not necessarily in the, be different and weird just to be different and weird. And I understand more now than ever that is a big reason that apparently a lot of people play role-playing games, is just to sort of have that self-expression kind of component. But, just because I don't necessarily like the ancestry doesn't mean I don't appreciate its design.
And well, not only that, you might see something in the design of that ancestry and then use it for your own, for custom, so in my game of Agents of Edgewatch, remember, so we had a new session on Monday, and they successfully grabbed a ruby that was like this big, the size of a football, that's worth 6,000 gold pieces, And then they also
That's
got
a lot in PF2.
Yeah, and the gold chains holding it up were worth 2,000 gold pieces.
Is this the same one that the demon
Yes,
pit
they
had
stole over that closed the portal to hell, that they had to jump over the portal to hell to steal. So they were talking about. So then we had a little mini shopping session, and they're like, and then I said, okay, well, actually, John Stats, you're the one who officially took it and closed the portal. So really the gem is yours, so you can do with it as you want. And then he's like, okay, I want to take the gold chains and just wrap them around my neck and go like Mr. T and just wear it. I just want to wear it as bling. I want to wear 8,000 gold pieces of bling. And I'm like, you know what, I will come up with a special 2-action thing you can do like once per fight or something, or once every 10 minutes, where it's like, look at me, and you like distract them with your bling. It has nothing to do with anything, but that's the nice thing, you can get other ideas.
It's just so valuable. It makes sense that people might become distracted with the make a distraction action at a bonus,
right? If
they saw something that was worth as much as like 500 years of their wages or something like that.
That reminds me, in third edition, the third edition DMG had the like art and heirlooms or whatever it was.
Yeah, the art and treasure tables.
Table.
I made that one for Pathfinder 2. It was actually kind of tricky.
Yeah, and I remember there was a roll. We used to play like random dice, random treasure rolls. So if somebody rolled a 99 or 100, I always let the players roll. You get to roll on the really good table or whatever. And I remember like a fairly low level party, and there was our buddy Aaron was playing a half orc barbarian named Crom, with a K though. Crom. And they rolled there was a eye patch with a sapphire in it. It was like one of the items on the DMG's treasure table. It was worth like 1d6 times 1,000 gold. So it was like worth like 4,000 gold or 5,000 gold. And everyone's like, oh, we're going to see it. Like, no, I'm not selling it. He's like, I'm just going to wear it. We're like, you're not even missing an eye. He goes, I know, but it's going to look sweet. And so he just wore it. I didn't even give it a special ability. He just
well, my point of that story was that you might find and see other special abilities that might not work within an ancestry or even a magic item, but then you can then end up reusing it for other uses, which is why I like to read everything, because it gives me ideas of how to reuse it, especially they're level 15. At that level, oh, by the way, they were attacked, and we ended the session with them being attacked by 5 mooks, and Gomez, the goblin, used Scared to Death, and the first one failed, and then the second one he got a crit and rolled a 50. And everyone was like, whoa, and that's like our first 50. And then I'm like, oh, and then he had to do the fort save, and he critically failed it.
Oh,
and
that's dead.
He died. And he was like, that was perhaps the most satisfying kill I've ever had. I was like, I looked at him and he died. And I was like, damn, 15th level is sick, man.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of that ability. I mean, that to me, it was
so much fun.
It is. I mean, like you're pretty super heroic when you're, in the upper teens of Pathfinder 2. So yeah, I like leaning into that,
Well, they're mooks. I was like, enjoy it now when you're going up against, because they're going up against a construct pretty soon, and that thing's going to wreck them.
That's no different than like, a high level, enlarged, huge, hasted barbarian moving into the middle of a pack of mooks and using whirlwind attack and like making like 10 attacks at 0 map.
Right.
And
Bard has fatal aria that can just automatically kill a mook. I don't think there's even a save or anything. They just if they're low enough level, they just die immediately.
Right. And again, you're talking to the wrong person here, because I love instant death spells. I love save or suck or save or die spells, and even back in third edition when it was much more common. I think I'm a big fan. But anyways,
fatal aria is 1 action and it can kill an ancient black dragon instantly.
So we did that. And then, what did we release today, Mark?
The Eldamon early access file, or what is it being called? Pre-release V1, which has air, electricity, fire, and force plus the 2 classes, but not the multi-class archetypes, the universal powers, the other 9 elements, or like the lore and tables chapter. But it's everything you need to play the classes, assuming that you're good with doing like a simpler distribution and not some table-based distribution that will be in the other chapter. And it's basically very close to final, other than the fact that it's not in the remaster, because the remaster is coming out next month, so it can't be in the remaster.
Did you guys get like is there some sort of like conversion Bible that Paizo's putting out?
No, there's
like,
no
a conversion Bible with like all the things to change.
Well,
I mean, that makes sense for something that they might put out to help home GMs who are converting their game. Like, as a support document,
as a publisher.
Well, Foundry did. If you load up the Foundry module, and that came out like a month ago,
they have all the things that Paizo's revealed so far.
Yeah. Well, if you load
that's
up,
not everything.
No, it's not everything. But if you load up the Foundry module, it actually has the first thing is a pop-up that lists everything, like what it's those are spells mostly. It's like this spell is now called this, and it's just
I just didn't know if you guys had early access to something.
So I have access to stuff. I just can't say what I have access to.
Okay, fair enough. Well, because that way, I'm sure they want people who are producing content for Pathfinder Second Edition. To start using the correct terminology ASAP, right?
Yeah, but to be fair, we're not going to release this anytime. We can't release anything before the pre-release. The remaster comes out anyhow. So
that's
there's
just
no
how
point.
It works for third parties.
No
that's how it works for Infinite Masters. That's how it works for partners or anything. No matter what you have and when you have it, you wait for Paizo. Like it would not make any sense and would be terrible if people did not wait.
I mean, they did it. Foundry only did it because they could, because they are literally just renaming.
Foundry was still waiting. They only put out what Paizo already announced.
And they just did renames. The spells are the same. In fact, they're going to probably have to change them again. So
I think they will.
Yeah. No, they're going to have to do a massive overhaul of the Foundry module, which I know they're doing now. So yeah, that's a lot of work.
Yep.
But right now I can't. So we could either make the changes and then release
all of it,
the Eldamon next
unpaid,
month.
I believe, right?
Yes and no. Those guys love it. In fact, I am doing a stream at 5 o'clock with Foundry to show off the Jewel of the Indigo Isles Foundry module. If you want to go visit that, you can see me. It's going to be on their It's going to be on. No, it's not Discord. It's going to be on Twitch, and then it will come and be uploaded. Let me give everyone the link. So that will be today at 5. And I like how they wrote the thing. Roll for Combat was the first major publisher to put out commercial content for Foundry VTT. That is correct. We actually were not just the first, but we were the first the first publisher to work directly with.
First big publisher to go.
Ever. We're not just big publisher ever to work with Foundry too. No one ever worked with them.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, no one did. Everyone worked indirecly, but I
definitely know we paved the way for Paizo.
No, we paved the way for a lot of people because suddenly now they're very busy. I'm like, because I'm using the same people and everyone wants to use them. I'm like, stop taking my people. These are my people.
They're shared people who everyone can
my
use.
People. Stop taking them.
Okay.
Mine. All mine.
Okay.
Well, now I got to show.
So we put out a ton of stuff, and we've got a lot more to come, and I'm very excited about that.
And on Monday, I rewrote and designed the Foundry module for World of Indigo Isles.
So that means it's coming out soon?
That took me longer than freaking Eldamon. That was much harder. That's actual code. Well, what we decided is that I wanted to put in it was done, but I wanted to put in all the tokens. So Ian is putting in tokens of every NPC with all their text and a cross-link within the actual PDF. So he has not just, if you click on it, it just comes with a token, it has all their information. So he's manually doing that. So that's a lot.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
But that explains why it's going to take longer.
Well, it's just take a little while. And also you're putting in all the maps, and you can click on the maps and go to that area. And
Well, I like that we're deluxe and have so many features. That's good.
well, I was angry because someone said that our Foundry modules were only average.
Yeah,
I was like,
when
what?
when they did, I think Ian went to talk to them, and their answer to that was basically they're all amazing, except that Foundry doesn't support automatically doing the monster part.
Well, that's
crafting
what
yet.
everyone keeps asking for.
And so they were like,
I can't
when we
do
say
it.
when I say it's hit and miss, I really mean it's hit, except for that one thing,
Which we can't
but that
do.
thing
and
is a memorable thing to that person.
I know,
So,
and we've been talking. Trust me, every time.
yeah,
it
we
comes
would do
up,
it in a heartbeat as soon as Foundry can allow it.
Yes,
So
Foundry
that's how it
does
goes.
not allow us to actually do the the monster parts allows you to do segmented items to a very very segmented items, like the way, say, Path Builder does them, or any of those programs. They don't let you do that. It's sort of all or nothing.
Right.
It's on the pipeline, and as soon as they add it, it's like you can build items like you can build characters. But right now you can't do that. It's all or nothing, so we can't do that. So anyhow.
So, Steven, I've been waiting all week to hear what you have to say because you talk to your lawyers so often about this Netflix evil genius thing that's going on. So, for everyone who is watching and is like, what is evil genius? I mean, you know what Netflix is. What is evil genius? Why is there a lawsuit over Rebel Moon? What happened is last week that Evil Genius put out a statement. It was picked up by various news sources that indicated that Netflix decided to cancel their tabletop RPG that was licensed based on Zack Snyder's upcoming Rebel Moon movie.
Mm-hmm.
And that Zack Snyder had been working with Evil Genius pretty extensively on it and was very in favor of it. And that at a shared panel between Netflix and Evil Genius sent a message to say, this is the art we're going to planning on showing off at the panel, which was okayed by Netflix. They showed it at the panel. Then Netflix said, breach of contract, you showed off art at the panel. We're canceling the entire RPG. And Evil Genius then sued.
Should I know who Evil Genius Games is? Because I remember there was there Super Genius, or there was
Super Genius, and then there was Rogue Genius, which are both things that were started with Owen Casey Stevens. Right, Evil Genius is a different company, although I think that they also work with Owen now too. He goes with all the geniuses.
Okay,
but they were a company that started up a few years back, or very recently, that is basically their business model is licenses.
So they're trying to
tabletop RPGs.
They're trying to be Modifius.
So they have Rambo, Escape from New York, Total Recall, Highlander. Their business model is licenses. And in this case, Netflix really kind of bit them on it. And I mean, for those people who are like, how could this even happen? That they sent in the email, they got the approval, they did the panel with Netflix people, and then Netflix canceled it. I'm not that shocked that that's possible in a huge company, because even when I've dealt with smaller companies, I've definitely dealt with situations where there's one or two people who are really conservative at the company compared to everyone else about what can be shown or what can be done, and who just don't hear about it, right? So if Evil Genius sends in their email to the people they've been dealing with who approve it, then have the meeting, and then some high up at Netflix somewhere else is like, what? This was leaked out? I never heard that this was going to happen. I don't approve of that. This is it. So I feel like this is a very believable, bad communications business structure thing that could happen from Netflix's side. But I'm curious about, did Evil Genius even have a chance, Steven? You said it, spoiler, that they do in the episode but they were going up against a pretty big company.
Mm-hmm. So if you go to Evil Genius Games, as we were saying, they're big product that they came out about a year ago, Everyday Heroes, which actually looks pretty damn cool. It's sort of like it
looks like D20 Modern, but
it is. 5e. It's D20 Modern.
It is D20 Modern for 5e.
It basically is. It looks like it because it is. And then they have all these it's like GURPS, and then you can add Rambo. They have Total Recall. They have Highlander, Pacific Rim, Escape from New York, The Crow, Kong Skull Island, and Universal Soldier. Okay, I don't know how that last one got in there, because everything in there was a home run, but in Universal Soldier,
you don't like Van Damme?
Ugh, I do like the muscles from Brussels, but Not that one. That's a bad movie. But everything else, I'm actually impressed they got those. And
I mean-
Escape from New York is one of my favorite movies of all time.
I mean,
so-
again, it's just like
Very impressive.
It's just like Modifius, where they were like this no name company, and they come out with this 2D20 engine, and suddenly somehow they end up with the license for Fallout, and they end up with Dune, and they
Yeah.
end up with Star Trek, like major IPs. I don't know how.
99% of that is someone knew someone.
Well, right.
That's all
I'm
it
sure.
is. No,
Well,
seriously, that's all it
maybe
is.
somebody knew somebody over
Oh yeah,
there.
someone knew someone, and they were able to get these licenses because it's almost impossible otherwise. So
All right.
let's
So-
go through the basics. So this is what ends up happening. What Mark said is correct. Is that supposedly they signed this contract? Well, let me go back. All right. So I have been following Netflix since they literally were. I've been a big Netflix follower since pretty much day one. Since
I used to be a big Netflix investor myself.
yeah, I was too for a very long time.
Me too, for a very long time.
And what ended up happening is that don't worry, Sean Wolf, we're going to get to the story Bible quite a bit. Is because that's the heart of this. Actually, that's the secret of this entire discussion. So this movie Rebel Moon. So every year, what Netflix does during Christmas is they will come out with one big property. It was, if you remember, it was The Witcher during Christmas a couple years ago. It was it Bird Box? Remember that? That was like a big one. And the reason they do it is because during Christmas, they try to find one, and they do all this marketing. Netflix is really an amazing marketing strategic company where that's what they secretly really do. And they find out and decide, okay, what movie is going to generate not necessarily the best movie, but the most information, the most traffic, the most views, because during Christmas, everyone worldwide gets new phones and they need something to do with their phones. And one of the first things they're going to do is download Netflix and then watch it on their phone. And the first thing they're going to watch is whatever the big hotness is. So that's why this happens. That's the whole reasoning. And the other thing is, during the Christmas break, I don't know if it's still true anymore, the Apple Store is closed and you can't do updates to your app. So if you put out your app, all the apps are locked down from Christmas to New Year's, and there's no more updates. So you can still release new things on Netflix, but it basically locks out the ability for new apps to come out. So that's why this is actually coming out on September 22nd. It's coming out a little bit before Christmas. Get the hype up. Christmas comes. Millions of people have new phones, new apps, new iPads, new computers. They download Netflix. What am I going to watch? What's the coolness? Rebel Moon's the coolness. That's they've decided will be the big show. So what is Rebel Moon? Rebel Moon is directed by Zack Snyder, who did the DC movies, which not so great. 300 though, fantastic.
300's great.
300 masterpiece. Say what you want about Zack Snyder.
And I love Watchmen.
Watchmen was fantastic, although the worst wigs and some of the worst acting I've ever seen. However, still a good movie. But man, those wigs are bad. Really bad. But very... Oh, and the makeup for the old aging? Ugh, terrible. But still a great movie. And an unfilmable script. He did the best anyone could possibly do with that script. So, this was supposed to be a Star Wars movie. And it was originally suggested as a Star Wars movie, but LucasArts turned it down, but Zach owned it. So he went to Netflix and they bought it. And this is a 2-part movie. This movie is coming out in theaters and on Netflix. And part 1 comes out December 22nd. And then part 2 comes out, I believe, in April. This is a huge movie. Like, they're putting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions into this. Many, many hundreds of millions. So...
on the premise being that people like Zack Snyder and people like lightsabers.
Yes. Well, it looked good. I mean, I've seen the look at the trailer.
I've seen
is
it.
Good.
I saw it when it came out. It looked compelling.
It's good.
You know, I thought they I think they had it wasn't Michael Caine. They had somebody doing the voiceover.
On top of that,
I was like, okay, they got some talent in here.
Yeah, I've been for the last year, or for actually last 6 months, I've been doing nothing except digesting like what's going. As you guys know, like movies and movies and games are my two other big hobbies, and TV. And
This is a movie and game.
I know, that's
clashing
why I'm like,
together.
we're talking about this one because I know a lot about this, and I can keep going on and go in the strike and talk about all this stuff. But the point is that what ended up happening is that right now the movies, they're all getting destroyed. Disney's losing over $1 billion this year, easily, if not more, on their movies. They're like really getting massacred, and it really comes down to people are just sick and tired of seeing the
Wait.
old.
Which movies?
What do you mean?
You said Disney's getting killed on movies. Like, you mean all of them?
Yeah, they.
Oh.
The Indiana Jones movie will be on course to lose
I forgot that
the
existed.
second most amount of money, perhaps in history of movies
Wow.
ever.
What was the most?
The most one is what's his name? John Carter of Mars was number one, which is also Disney, by the way. And this will be number 2. So this one is going to lose like $500 million, like easily. It's losing a lot of money. There's like every movie, even the Mission Impossible did not do great. Like a lot of these movies just got destroyed, and that was like a surefire. Like they're like, oh yeah, this one will do. Nope, did not do very well. And it really comes down to fatigue, and people are just sick of the same old, same old. Rebel Moon is new.
No, it's not. It's Star Wars.
It's Star Wars again.
You know what? It's gonna probably do well because people want new Star Wars. They don't want freaking rehashed old Star Wars. Okay, I can spend 100 hours talking about this topic and give lots of backup for this. But
Steven's new channel.
Yeah,
what
that
Star
could be a
Wars
new channel.
want.com.
Yeah, but long story short is people are very interested in new. And this happens. This goes through cycles. We're in the cycle, and it just happened to be at a bad time when the cycle happened. So this is going to be big. Okay? Remember, and I think I'll be right. Remember I kept saying how big Baldur's Gate 3 was going to be? All I'm going to say is I rest my laurels on that one because I was pumping that one up way before anyone else, and I rest my case. I'm going to rest my case that Rebel Moon's going to be big.
I will take the other side of that bet.
You're going to be wrong, but you can go.
Okay.
You can say that.
Okay. No, you know what? We'll set. I do think it'll make money. Like, I don't think it's going to be a loser.
Mhm.
But in terms of being a box office smash, no.
Let me set the stakes
I
for
think it
this
will.
bet between Steven and Derek. So let's say on the scheme of Netflix releases, Stranger Things was obviously a phenomenon that affected like pop culture anywhere. So Steven, would you say
pop culture? That's a little different, but keep
would
going.
you say that Rebel Moon will be about as big as Stranger Things?
No, nothing will be.
Okay.
Nothing has been except for there's like I can do a handful of things that have ever been as big as Stranger Things.
Okay.
But that was also released at a very specific time.
No, it
when Netflix
was. I'm not saying it has to be as big.
Yeah.
I want to get some qualifications to this bet between you and Derek to see where the line is for how big it was. So
Well,
what else would be like a big Netflix original? Do they even have anything?
No,
other
One
than Stranger
Piece.
Things?
One Piece and was massive.
Okay, would you say One Piece is very, very big Netflix original?
It's the biggest one of all time.
Okay, so would you say Rebel Moon will be bigger than
No,
One
but
Piece?
it's going to be up there in the top 20.
Okay. Up there in the top 20 of
Of all
Netflix
time.
originals.
Of all
So,
time.
Derek,
No,
are you going to take the
of
other
all
side
time.
of that? It is not in the top 20 of Netflix originals.
All right, I looked it up. The budget's $166 million,
Which actually is
Okay.
low. That's
Which does
actually
feel-
really low.
which does feel low for what
Okay.
I've seen.
Okay, Fast and the Furious 10 or whatever that was. You know what the budget for that was? $340 million.
All right,
Mm.
All right, so
That's
I'm gonna-
cars.
all right,
Why are
I'm
you
gonna set.
spending $340 million?
All right, I'm gonna set the line at 250 million. Do you take more or less in terms of box office gross? You gotta go.
Box office is hard because I don't think they don't care how it does they couldn't care less how it does in the box office. They just want people to go onto Netflix.
How do you measure
How do you
these
measure
Netflix
Netflix
originals?
movies? Yeah.
Well, because later what they will do is they will say where it was ranked in the releases and how many people saw it. So there is going to be like a ranking of where it's going to be.
Okay.
I mean,
over under of
well, also, you
10.
saying worldwide or
All right, here
you
we
saying
go,
not
here we go.
US? It's not going to make that much US.
This is a couple years old, but so Bird Box, according to English language Netflix original movie top 10,
Mm-hmm.
the most watched Netflix titles in history.
Right.
Bird Box had 90 million.
Right.
Let's see here. Stranger Things season 3 had 65 million.
Yeah.
And The Queen's Gambit had 62 million. So that's kind of setting sort of
Yeah.
a ballpark. So I will set the line at 50 million.
Oh, easily do 50.
So you're gonna take the over on 50?
Oh yeah, I'll do over 50.
Okay, so you think this is gonna be like Queen's Gambit level?
It'll be higher than that, yeah.
Oh, okay, all right,
There you
fine,
go.
fine. If you're,
But no, I'm
if you're
going to
so
say
There we go.
bold-
We've done it.
50.
We've set the
I'm
stage.
doing
So
a
Derek
50.
says lower than
All right.
Queen's Gambit level.
All right,
Yeah.
yeah, all right. I
So
can buy that.
actually, Variety. I mean, so.
By the way, for comparison, Squid Game did 142.
Oh, I
million.
know. Squid. I forgot about that. I was going to say Squid Game. Like, you have no idea. And Netflix supposedly beat even that. Now, I believe because One Piece is the biggest media property and like the top 5 media properties in the history of the world ever. So I can see it easily beating that. So anyhow, and I'm just giving this because this is kind of a long story. So
Sure.
I'm setting it up because people are like,
All right.
who cares about this? Who cares about
Why
Rebel
does it
Moon?
matter? Right?
And before this, like, right, Derek's like, who cares? No one's going to play this game. Well, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. So anyhow, according to according to Variety, Evil Genius agreed to pay Netflix an upfront licensing fee of $7,500, followed by payments of $7,500 on February 1st, 2024, and $10,000 on February 1st, 2025, as well as to, quote, share profits derived from the licensed articles with Netflix. So they didn't pay that much. They actually paid pretty low fees, in my opinion. Now, they had to come up with 1,000 pages of content. They came out with a 430-page player guide, a 337-page Game Master guide, and a 228-page World Bible guide, which I'm going to get into. And that they did in just a few months because this had to come out immediately. Very quickly.
I'm going to be devil's advocate here.
Yes.
I am assuming that, like their other IPs that you mentioned, Rambo, Pacific Rim, etc., I am assuming that they are using this Everyday Heroes engine.
I think it's
for
separate.
In which case, that is a big
it's
deal to me
standalone.
because-
It's actually standalone.
Because if it's 430 pages of a literal brand
It's
new
a brand new game.
system,
Brand new.
or is it brand new and it's just 5e again?
Oh,
Like,
I don't know that because no one saw anything, but it's not a part of the Everyday Heroes. It's its own thing.
Okay.
It's a brand
Because I'm
new.
assuming that all those other games basically
Mhm.
are following the same. Like Modifius does this with their 2D20
Yeah,
system.
yeah.
They tweak it a little bit for Dune versus Star Trek versus, Conan, but it's all kind of the same game,
Yeah. I mean, this could be that for all I know, but we haven't seen anything.
Okay.
And on top of that, they were meeting with Zack Snyder regularly. Like, they had meetings with him. Because this is his world. Like, it's his design. So it's not like they were working with nobodies there. We're
Mhm.
And
literally...
he supposedly praised the World Bible of new IP that Evil
Yeah.
Genius came up with and said he wants to include elements from it in the ongoing
that's where-
stuff that they're making.
Correct.
Well,
That's where it's...
that is tricky.
Well, that's where we're getting to the heart of it, okay? That's
Yeah.
where we're going to get to it. So supposedly Netflix then said on May 25th, they terminated the agreement with Evil Genius, claiming Evil Genius had violated confidential provisions in its contract by sharing artwork at an industry trade show at Gamma. However, Evil Genius said, A, we shared all the images with you ahead of time, and you approved them in writing. B, you're at the conference with us. And C, this is where I am getting to what you said, Mark. They can cancel it for any reason, okay? I've had contracts canceled for fake reasons more than once in my life, and I've had to go to court and then show that they were, they basically did bad faith. So you could just say Netflix can say anything they want. Now they have to give a reason. It has to be a reason in the contract, unless it states that they're work for hire and they can fire them for any reason. So they just said, oh yeah, they violated it, and they're saying, well, we didn't. It's like, yeah, well, we're saying you did. I guess we'll have to go to court to decide. Okay.
So what would Netflix's motivation be? Right?
Well, we're getting to that.
Okay, because
So
I
they-
actually don't.
Yeah, what
understand.
is it, Steven?
So
Because I haven't even seen anyone who's speculated on that.
So here's the thing. So Netflix then went to Evil Genius and says, we'll give you 50 grand for everything you did to date, and we own it.
Oh, they wanted that world, but I think that makes it sound really scummy. Like that they wanted that world Bible
Correct.
to use for their own stuff, and they realized that it was an ongoing liability for them. That if
Perhaps.
they used it off
Maybe.
of the original contract,
So here's
that
where
they might have to keep paying Evil Genius for it.
So here's the trick. Here's the rub. So the movie is only a movie. Okay. There's only like however movie scripts are. So it's 2.5 hours. It's about 140 page. It's about a 140 page movie script. Okay. That's how long the movie is, the script. Now there's two of them. So we'll say 300 pages. Okay. I'm just going to make that up. There's 300 pages for the movie script. By the way, movie script, 1 page is 1 minute. So this I can figure it out. So that's it. Now, Zach might have his own, world Bible since
I'm
it's
sure he
his.
does.
I'm sure he does. But supposedly Evil Genius had to come up with a ton of new content for the game because they had to come up with 1,000 pages worth of new stuff. So they invented a ton of lore, a ton of background, and a ton of information to be used for the role-playing game, and that's the World Bible. And Netflix said, and so does Zack Snyder, that they were going to use the World Bible because A, they did such a good job on it, and B, hey, they want everything to be consistent and, in a universe that's all consistent within. So they'll, say, okay, we take the World Bible, we're using the role-playing game, we're going to take it and abstract it from the movie. And then, of course, they'll have tie-ins if they do TV shows or additional movies, or they do books, or they do new
They're planning
action
on doing
figures.
a video game.
Video
I saw.
games, right. So everything will then start using this Bible. Okay. So that is the secret, is that who owns the Bible? No one cares about the role-playing game. You're correct, Derek.
Okay.
It's the Bible that people are caring about.
I don't know who they've. I don't know. I was looking at their list of people. I know Owen K. Stevens. I see Sen is in there.
Yeah,
At least as
yeah.
one of their writers for maybe an adventure. I don't know if she's one of their designers. I said I find it hard to believe. I mean, maybe they've got some incredible talent over there, but I find it hard to believe that the content in this World Bible was so compelling that Netflix is basically risking, a lawsuit. They're risking, not to mention the bad faith,
Well,
to get
Maybe
their
they
hands
just
on it.
assumed that they couldn't lose.
well, here's the thing. I
I mean,
spoke to
corporations being greedy? Never heard of that before,
well,
Mark.
I spoke to my lawyer today. Actually, I called him and he and I went through it. And he said, look, unless Netflix was incredibly stupid, he guarantees that there's definitely a provision in there saying anything and any derivative works that Evil Genius did, Netflix owns.
Yep. I assume that is what.
So, in reality, there's no reason that they really needed to break off this contract and sue them because, in theory, everything that they created, Netflix owned anyhow. So it
then
didn't,
that
it didn't
can't be their
matter.
motivation then.
Except for
unless
one,
the motive.
except for one small thing. They said that, according to these articles, that Netflix went back to them and offered them $50,000
Which is ridiculously too
to
low.
to ask them to own everything they created to date. Now, why would Netflix come to
Why
them
would
and
they
ask,
do that if they had
Right.
a reasonable contract
Correct.
that they would have had where they already
Correct.
owned it?
Correct. So
Yeah, it's very
now
strange.
this is just speculation, and obviously we don't know, and this will all come out in the wash.
Yeah.
And it could
It
be
legitimately could just be that there was someone who was super conservative about pictures at Netflix and was just like, aha, these people are just showing off our stuff. we have a whole plan for this in December. We did not
Or-
want to get the pictures out in the wild in advance. How did this Rebel Moon picture get out there? And they were like, "Oh, it's our deal with Evil
You
Genius."
see,
And they're
you're
like,
hung
"Who
up
are
on
Evil
that.
Genius?"
Nah, that's totally BS. I'm not calling you out,
No?
Mark. Yeah, just ignore that whole. That no one cares about that.
That's definitely
100%.
So you're
There's
saying
no
that
chance.
it's definitely
No
impossible
chance.
that there were people at Netflix who actually just wanted to. So it's definitely
I
a
think-
bad faith claim.
I'm 99% sure it's a bad faith claim, but I will say it could be something as simple as, wait a second, my brother at Dave's gaming company, he wants to do the RPG instead, so let's cancel this contract with Evil Genius. I'm giving it to my brother-in-law.
So I'm curious. Let's say that Netflix came to you
Mm-hmm.
and said, "We want you guys to do the Stranger Things RPG or something," you know?
I'd
How's there
say talk to my lawyers because they're monsters.
But I guess what I'm saying is like, how would you have set that up?
Well, the
Would it
deal
be-
is
Steven
traditional.
would have had his lawyers set it up.
Well,
Well,
no,
what I'm
no,
saying,
wait,
would it-
okay,
would it-
that you
would
get
it-
paid.
Because
so-
obviously you're not going to own the Stranger Things IP.
no. So
But
the
at
way
the same time,
No,
they
no,
might
wait,
give you a ton of. They might give you a lot of
wait,
liberties
I can
to
tell you.
expand on the Upside Down and all the other
Yeah,
areas.
Yeah. Okay, so first of all, I do contracts like this all the time. I'll tell you how I set these up. There's basically that you do get paid in percentages, like pieces. And the other thing that's important is that you get paid for work to be done. That you get paid for work that's done up to the point of cancellation. So, and they're responsible for that. So they can't have you develop 99% of the product and then cancel it at 99%, and then you get paid nothing. If you did, I'm just gonna say the contract's for $100,000, and I'm like, well, and they cancel at 99%. I'm like, that's fine. Here's your bill for $99,000 because we're done. We had 1% left.
That works if
mhm.
they're paying you to write it, but it doesn't work in a licensing situation like this where you're paying them a little bit of money and then you take most of the revenue from
Correct.
the product when it's released.
Correct, but it's kind of silly because why would they? I mean, I guess Evil Genius thought they would make so much money by
Right.
paying a licensing fee of.
Clearly, they have that as their business model, and at the very least, they're still doing it after they've done it a few times. So they either have made money or
So
they
the-
are at
so
least
to answer-
hoping they will.
To answer your question, Derek, is you don't do a model. I've been screwed 100 times on these back end models where, you pay us up front and then will you get money on the back end? I don't do those.
Yeah.
I never do back end models anymore. I only do front end models where I'm like, nah, I'll take the risk that
Yeah.
the back end will. If this becomes another Star Wars and I screwed up, but I'm willing to take the risk that it's not. You pay me for my work now, and then I'll take a way less percentage, and you could take a larger percenage.
Right.
Of work.
Could
You
you,
know,
do
I-
it with an advance where they pay and then you get a smaller percentage later on?
Yeah. I mean, I was just talking to someone about. So this summer, I was working with someone, and we came up with a website that's going to be like it can be resold. I won't go into it; it's very technical. But they're like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna like." He's like, "You guys are gonna be so busy. You're gonna be setting up new versions of this website. We're gonna sell 1 million of these." I'm like, I'm just sitting there. I've seen this 100 times. I'm like, yeah, you let me know when you sell one of those. So, like, let alone one every week or month. Meanwhile, I talked to my team, like, they haven't sold a single one yet. So, that's why I'm like, always the money up front. I never do the back end deals because they
Right.
never work. So that's how I would do it.
We did have a super chat.
We have a
We
couple.
did from Glade Riven that said West End Games essentially compiled the Bible for the Star Wars expanded
Right.
universe. That looks like what the plan was here before it went south.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting that Glade Riven says that, and then Jonas said, "Is it possible that Netflix wants or wanted to change things that were in the Bible because they felt that their in-house writers were better?" I don't know
be.
about that, but I was wondering. I was wondering. I mean, is it possible that somehow the writers' strike might have been involved in this?
1,000%.
Because right, because
not even 1,000. I guarantee it, and I'll tell you. I'll tell you why.
yeah. Because obviously the people at Evil Genius Games did not fall under that writers, right?
No, they do not.
They could continue to develop
Yes.
story information, all that other stuff. Meanwhile, everybody who was working at Netflix that would have been working on this IP,
correct,
was on the picket line.
Correct. And then suddenly they're like, wait, we got all this free stuff. We'll sue them and take their stuff and use it instead.
Yeah.
And own it. So I won't get into it. Long story short, for what it's worth, the system that exists now in the year 2010, residuals on television shows. Let me tell you how television shows work. Imagine you are Anthony Edwards and you're on ER. And only
that's a what a throwback that was.
Well, I'll tell you why, because my brother knows him. My brother knows him.
He's the guy from Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah, he was a doctor. Dr.
Played
Green.
Dr. Mark Green.
Mark Green. Dr. Green. I also just saw the episode where he died, and so it's fresh in my mind.
Spoiler alert!
Oh, that's a fantastic episode.
Of course it is.
Oh my god, it was so heartbreaking. I just watched it again. I was like, oh my god, that is devastating. That episode.
That was about the time I stopped watching that show. But anyway.
I kind of stopped right after that too. God, this really good. He got paid $250,000 an episode. Okay, because he was so popular. Well, let me tell you how it actually works. You're paid that twice. You're paid $250,000 the first time it airs, and then when it goes to syndication, you're paid that again. Right. So you get another $250,000, and then every single time it airs anywhere in the world, you get a small amount of money. Not just you, the writers. In fact, the guy who wrote, I knew someone who's a writer in Hollywood. He wrote the pilot. It was like either Hill Street Blues or ER. It was something like he wrote, LA Law. He wrote the pilot for LA Law, and that's it. He got residuals for LA Law forever just for writing the pilot. He made millions, and he just did nothing. Okay? That's how it works. In 2010, it was residuals on residuals on television shows worldwide was $10 billion. $10 billion, okay? These make a ton of money, and everyone's getting paid. Well, Netflix was designed to go around that, because guess what? When Netflix buys a TV show, they own it. They can show it as many times as they want. By the way, when you buy syndication rights, you can only show it 6 times. And then it goes up again, and it goes up for auction. So there's this whole auction system for how syndication works. So, and it's for every country. So a show, once it gets syndicated, can make billions, not even millions, makes billions. It can make a ton of money, which is why they kept trying. And everyone can get super rich.
I remember there was like a documentary about it, about like how Baywatch was like the most syndicated show in history of the universe.
Yeah, it made billions for everyone.
Billions of dollars, yeah.
Well, the problem is if you go on Netflix, you make nothing. No one makes any more money. It's all gone.
And that is a lot what they were striking about, right?
Yeah, that's basically it. Is that Netflix was pretty much designed to kill the entire market, and it's putting a lot of people out of business, and suddenly people who would work on TV shows that were getting residuals are getting nothing. They don't get any money because the Netflix doesn't do that. They don't give out residuals. They buy it lock, stock.
They buy it once, basically.
They buy it once, and they can show it forever. And what was doing, Netflix was smart, because at the time when they first came out, they were buying shows that no one was watching anyhow, that no one cared about. So, like, who cared? And no one was getting residuals. These were dead shows anyhow.
So they were cheap.
Yeah, they were cheap, and no one cared. They were just buying up libraries of nothing. That's why everyone's like, oh, the shows are disappearing on Netflix, because suddenly people realize, wait a second, every show has some value.
Right, which is also why, you saw ABC, NBC, they all came out with their own streaming platforms, because they were like, why would we sell the rights to this to some other company who could make money off of it if we could just make money off of it and collect a monthly fee anyways? And by the way, I have no subscription to anything, but I know so many people who now, between their Paramount, their Disney, their Netflix, they're paying more than they used to pay
way more.
when they had cable.
Yeah, way
which
more.
was the whole point.
Yeah.
And
the carrier and cable has this thing called carrier fees, which are how much you pay to be part to have their. I could go on about this. You can see I know a lot about this subject. I won't go into it. Long story short is, Netflix is getting squeezed right now. All these companies are getting squeezed because suddenly this model that they were using to cut everyone out, now everyone's striking because they're like, great, we based our careers off this model, which has been around pretty much since, and the first syndicated TV show I Love Lucy. And oh boy, did that make a lot of money. And guess who owned that syndication rights? Lucy herself.
Mm.
And you know who founded? You know who funded Star Trek and saved it and made sure it existed?
It was Desilu, right? The thing with
Desilu.
Lucy
It was
and her
Lucille
husband.
Ball. She was a huge
Yep.
Star Trek fan. She's the one, Derek. Did you know that?
I did know that.
Okay, a lot of people know that, but still,
Yeah.
it's impressive because you didn't think of her as a Trekkie. She's like the Trekkie, as in she literally made it. So it
Trust me,
wasn't for her.
There was no other way that I would have known that Lucille Ball's production company was called Desilu if it was not for that.
Yeah, but the point is that
There you go.
she made, oh my god, did she became mega rich off of syndication. So anyhow, syndication has been around in Hollywood for 50, 60, 70 years now. So multiple generations of people have based their careers off of it. And in one fell swoop, in just about 10 years, it's now gone. And now no one's making money except for the streaming companies. And that's why they're striking, because they can't support themselves anymore.
Right. Yeah.
So
That's crazy.
Way back to this Rebel Moon thing. I told you, I know we're talking a lot, and if you guys have questions, feel free to have it. But it really comes down to that I believe that Evil Genius had the Bible. Netflix wants that Bible for whatever reason and wants to own it. I'm kind of surprised it's not in the contract that they own it already. But maybe they don't. Maybe there's something in the contract, because why would they cancel it? And even if they did cancel it, I think they're canceling it means that, okay, if we can't have it, no one can have it. Because it sounds like the timeline was Evil Genius had their showcase in March, April with Gamma. Netflix canceled the contract in May. And then Netflix and Evil Genius were trying to work out a truce. Netflix came to them and said, we'll give you $50,000 to own everything. They said no. And they said, fine, we're not allowing you to release anything you created ever. And you don't have to pay us anymore, because we canceled it. In fact, they probably even had to give up the licensing fees, unless it said in the contract they don't. So they probably gave back the $15,000.
Right, but that's a rounding error on the budget of a $165 million film. So.
Exactly. I mean, that's
They
not
probably
even.
They probably spent more on catering.
In one day, they spent more than catering. I love all of that. So anyhow, the point is that they could be trying to just kill this because they have their own world Bible and they don't want any competition. And maybe there was a mistake in the contract that somehow gave Evil Genius.
It still doesn't make total sense to me. It really doesn't.
No, it doesn't. But nothing ever.
Like,
but you know what? It doesn't have to.
What does Netflix lose by this RPG getting created?
Unless there's a mistake in the contract, or there's someone who literally doesn't want it to happen. Which it can happen. I've seen this. I've seen more petty things in my life.
Yeah.
Maybe someone just really hates role-playing games, or maybe someone thinks it's a waste of time and energy and effort, or maybe they didn't like what they saw, or maybe
I mean,
it
listen,
could be anything.
I certainly feel bad for them. It sounds like they've been working hard on this game for an
Very
entire year.
hard.
And we're banking on getting some, pretty sick paychecks from the sale of it. And now they are left up, up shit creek without a paddle. But at the same time, it's like, I feel like they put themselves in that situation, right? Because if you're in that situation where you go, I can't make any money until this game releases, and this other company completely controls the fate of my entire organization, it just feels like that alone is brutal. But maybe that's the world of
that is the world
of these IP-based RPG games, right?
It is. But what you do is
high risk, high reward, right?
There is, but what you do is, so I created games for I used to create games for Nickelodeon and Disney. And so we had to create, I think it was like 9 games for Disney. So I made sure we were paid after each one. So this way I wasn't all my eggs in one basket. So like, okay, here's game 1. Where's my paycheck? And then it started, and then it was fine. Like, you put all your eggs in one basket, one game. It's like, well, maybe we get like, there's different things. It's like, okay, yeah, we are responsible, but you have to give us money to develop it, and if you cancel it, we keep that as a kill fee, and then we can walk away. And it could be even, okay, there's a kill fee and you own the property, so that could have gotten them out cleanly. So a kill fee is basically, oh, okay, we'll pay you Netflix pays Evil Genius, I'm just gonna make up a number, $100,000 over some installments and milestones to give them and show them what they're creating. And at any time, Netflix decides, you know what, we like this so much, we want to own it. Here's your kill fee. Keep the $100,000. You don't owe us any more licensing, and we own it now.
It's kind of like a first right of refusal,
Pretty
kind of,
much.
right?
Yeah.
Like, you know?
Yeah. And they can do that. And that's how I would set these things up.
Yeah.
Basically, you asked me how I set it up. You set it up front heavy. You set it up that everything's up front, and therefore we're taking all the risk, and you are taking none. Instead, your risk is you are giving us money, and if you don't like it.
What is the possibility that this relationship was actually opposite? What if the relationship wasn't Netflix going to Evil Genius Games and saying, hey, develop a role-playing game for us? Right. And instead it was Evil Genius Games knocking on the door, getting some meeting with someone at Netflix.
No, I guarantee it was.
Begging.
It was.
And they say, hey, listen.
Begging,
but I mean, trying to get in on the ground floor of this.
Yeah.
And Netflix maybe felt like, this kind of maybe like leaning more into what Mark was saying. I'm not necessarily saying that they actually were upset about this artwork thing, but maybe they just felt like you know what I mean? Like maybe the relationship was more that the Evil Genius Games were the ones that were trying to get this made.
And Netflix,
and Netflix reached a point where they say, you know what, we're done working with you. I'm not trying to say like they did anything wrong.
Who knows?
But like,
and I can't speculate on any of this. It could be Evil Geniuses, quote, the bad guys in this. And maybe something else happened, and who knows?
Because to your point, when I was at it was either Origins or Gen Con, Steven. They all kind of merged together.
Yeah.
But I was talking with the people over at the Modiphius booth, and I was talking to one of the people there.
Origins, but
and I was talking with them, and I said, basically, like, how did they get this IP? And the guy, I can't remember the president of Modiphius. He goes, I don't know, man. So and so has just a silver tongue. He knows the right people,
exactly.
Like you said,
yes.
right? And he calls the right people.
Yep.
And he makes the pitch.
Yep.
And the long story short, though, is that these companies, Modiphius, they're the ones chasing the IP.
Oh, yeah,
they're the ones
definitely.
They go to the other company and they say, hey, look, we're going to pay you money to even use your IP.
Yeah.
Then we're going to sell books. We're going to give you a royalty fee from the sale of those books.
Right.
This is only a win, win, win. And if at any time we violate the terms of the IP, you can just walk away and not worry about, making it as pro, big company, pro IP holder as they possibly can, so that the people feel comfortable sharing their IP with a third party.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever reason, Netflix felt like they had to pull out. And it's like, again, I feel bad for the people who did that, but it's like they may have structured the deal in such a way that this was not necessarily an inevitable outcome, but definitely a potential one.
So I'm going to tell you how Evil Genius can win this, because that was in
because to me it seems like that Netflix could at least hold it up for a long time.
D. Todd Scott, are you paying attention? That's the CEO of Evil Genius Games.
I'd love to have you. By the way, Evil Genius, I didn't pick them up. I went to Gen Con and they were all sold out. I was like, because I love all those movies except Universal Soldier. I love those movies. I love Escape. I was like very excited, and I don't want to carry stuff back with me from Gen Con. But then B, on the last day, I was like, okay, I'll buy some, all sold out. So I didn't everything was sold out at Gen Con on the last day. Man, that Gen Con was like probably the best Gen Con. Everything got sold out. Anyhow.
I'm
crazy.
Everything.
Everything. There was nothing left. I should have waited. In fact, the only thing
people were like vultures picking over the bones.
God. Dude, I got this. I got Forgotten Lands. I got this. I was the last copy. And I got this on Saturday because they were going to get sold out by Sunday. I was like, it's impossible to get anything there. It was amazing. Anyhow.
I'm going to guess just right now that the CEO will not be able to come on to a stream and discuess things
we
live.
We can talk about your other
their
games.
Lawyers are probably warning them.
No. We won't talk about that. We talk about your other games, man. Talk about it. I love talking about Escape from New York.
I would love to understand the pricing structure on this. Total Recall, a cinematic adventure compatible with the Everyday Heroes system, which, by the way, makes credit to the point where I said they have their proprietary system they roll out.
Yeah.
Digital only, $20.
I know.
Physical plus digital, $25.
I know.
Wow.
I know. I was like, how $25 for physical? That is
What?
You're losing money, man.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's a very
bad business. No offense.
I don't know. Like,
That's
I don't
bad
know how they're
business.
doing that, and they
Oh,
have a
you're losing money.
license, so they have to
Don't do
pay
that.
royalties.
And they
on
pay
it.
royalty, dude. It's you make that 50.
Maybe they're making 10 cents a book.
Ugh, it doesn't matter. That's a bad business. I don't know what they're doing. it's like it's way too low.
I know
Way
these
too
prices.
low.
I'm like, oh my god! Like,
But
how
it
do
makes you want to get
Way
it,
too
I
low.
guess, doesn't it?
I know,
Well, I mean,
but it's still way too low.
Is it like kind of a poison pill where they actually don't want you to buy the physical book and they just want you to buy the PDF?
Doesn't matter. You still have to make the physical books, and that's a sunk cost.
I don't see how they can possibly not lose money
No,
compared to the PDF.
I don't want to get into it, but that's a
$5.
bad deal, baby. In fact, that's the worst part of this business is the physical products.
All right, so Steven, how can they win? How can they beat the Goliath if they're the David, or beat the Balor if they're Luke, or
Okay.
whoever has a slingshot and is gonna shoot the really powerful thing?
Did you just say beat the Balrog if you're Luke?
I said beat the Balor if you're Luke.
The Balor, if you're Luke?
Balor, yes, beat Balor, the Fomorian, if you're Luke, the god of the sun.
Oh, I thought you meant
Celtic
Luke
mythology,
Skywalker,
who
'cause Luke
also used a
Skywalker
slingshot.
Would be defeating the
I thought you said Balrog and Luke. As
I know, I
Luke
thought he was
Skywalker.
Star Wars and Lord of the
Because
Rings.
there's multiple myths around the world of some small person with a slingshot who defeats like the big scary giant, and that's where Balor comes from.
Oh, did John Carter lose more money than Waterworld? At the time, Waterworld, yeah, you're right. The ATOG, they told sunk twice because they shot that on location on water. And when they went to go film that, I think it was Steven Spielberg who told them, don't do it because of Jaws. And he's like, don't film on water. Trust me. And sure enough, everyone who films on water, whether it's James Cameron or Waterworld, or believe it or not, even oh wait, I was trying to think of the other one. Oh, there's a whole bunch. They're all like, yeah, that was the worst experience of my life, like ever. Like no one ever wants to film on water. Yeah, the production was good. Actually, if you look up John Carter lost more money. I think it's the worst of all time, percentage wise, and I think money wise too.
The budget.
By the way, Pirates of the Caribbean. By the way, okay, you're really getting me on a tangent, but I will get to it. Pirates of the Caribbean now. Watch Pirates of the Caribbean. Watch part 1, part 2, part 3, back to back to back, because it was designed as a trilogy. And it is, at the time, one of the greatest movies I've ever seen, with some of the best special effects ever. You see Balboa, and you see, not Balboa, you see Davy Jones. Barbosa and Davy Jones in sunlight, and it looks perfect. You know how hard that is to have freaking squid face in sunlight? Perfect CGI from like 12 years ago. That is the pinnacle of CGI. Actually, it's actually gone down since then, in my opinion. And it mostly has to do with overworking, which I won't get into. But that script, if you watch those 3 movies one after another, are some of the best movies ever made. And compared to what is designed and made now, that was the pinnacle of amazing action, fun, well designed, well scripted, well shot, well framed movies, and it's all going downhill since. Anyway, and I can do another show on that.
Okay, so I'm just
the estimate is that when you factor in everything, including marketing, they estimate that Waterworld lost around $100 million,
which is nothing now, by the way. And now at the time,
there you go.
But look at John Carter; it lost like 300 million or something.
And I honestly thought John Carter was kind of not great.
It was terrible.
The lead actor was very bad. I thought
terrible in that movie,
but it was not great.
So you built up so much suspense, Steven. How can they do it?
I'll explain something to you, and then we'll go into how. No, because I got to get the backstory.
All right.
So my brother did the costumes, and he did the pilot for True Blood, the HBO series.
Anna Paquin.
Yes. And he did the first season. Now, if you watch the first season, he did all the costumes. He didn't come back for the second season, but it has it in his contract that he designed the look and the feel. And remember the costumes, remember the shirts they were wearing in the bar and everyone, like all that stuff. Like he came up with everything. So he designed the whole look and feel of the television show. And that became the Bible for that show. And that was a big hit, if you remember. I think that show was on for like, was it 5, 6, 7 years? So they kept using his designs and then iterated off those designs for the rest of the series. Okay. But it wasn't his contract that when he does that they own it. And that anything he came up with, they owned and then could iterate off on forever. He didn't get paid anything extra for that. Okay. So that is the proper way to do it. And that's how you're supposed to do it. If for some reason there was a mistake in the contract saying that Evil Genius owned even 1% or even 0.1% of that world guide, the Bible that they came up with, that was the expanded universe for this property, and then Netflix used anything from that world Bible on another property and they make money off of it, then Evil Genius can say, hey, wait a second. We invented, because there are lightsabers in this. I'm just going to make this simple. In the trailer, you can see they're wielding like red lightsabers. You could say, well, in our world guide, we came up with the double-bladed green lightsaber. And that was not in any of your scripts. It was not in any of your promotional material. It was not in anything you gave us. We invented that. And we have it. And you are now using it. Imagine they come out with Rebel Moon 2. And like
they said there's going to be a second one,
right?
And
they'll come out with other properties, and they'll say, "Wait, you are making money off of that, off of our IP, our ideas off your IP, and we did not sign that over to you. You owe us money, and maybe it's 0.1%, but we own a percentage of that. Pay up." And that is where this can get very sticky. Is that if Evil Genius owns any percentage or any ideas from that world Bible, and it's not completely owned lock, stock, and two smoking barrels by Netflix, they're in trouble. They, being Netflix, is in trouble. That's the issue at hand. And that's how Evil Genius can actually hold them over the barrel. Now, if Netflix says, well, I don't even want that to happen, they'll just cancel this whole thing. They get sued. What are they going to get sued for? $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 at most? That's nothing. And it'll take years to go through the court system. In fact, if you submit scripts to people like Star Trek is the only, I believe the only, at the time they were the only television show that would actually solicit and read scripts from fans. If you ever send scripts to any other show, like Stargate, or, I'm just trying to think of science fiction shows, or, like any other science fiction show at the time, like Babylon 5 and so forth, they'll send them back unopened because they don't even want to have the chance that they read something and then put it in the show and then they get sued for, oh, I came up with that idea and you put that in the script, therefore you owe us money. They will not take unsolicited scripts because they don't want any liability issues whatsoever.
That makes sense.
So what they'll do is they'll just send them back. And look up Harlan Ellison. Harlan Ellison, who was perhaps one of the most litigious people on planet Earth, he sued everybody. He actually sued Star Trek. What's the time travel one, the most famous one, where they go back in time?
The
City on the Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah. And
he sued and won that it was like stolen from one of his ideas because he wrote 500 short stories a week. So everything, he sued the people from Terminator, said he came up with that. He sued everyone because he did come up with everything, and everything could be in theory derived from his work if you look hard enough. And he won a lot of those, in fact, because in theory, something could come from something if you look hard enough. So that's the only way I can see that they could, quote, win, is that Netflix has decided they don't want to chance it. They don't want this world Bible to come out. They don't want anything that they don't own 100%, that they have 100% control over, that they are the only ones that have all access to the IP. And if there's somehow even a smidge in there that says...
It looks like Ellison actually wrote the City on the Edge of Tomorrow.
Oh, he did. Sorry, he did write that one. He actually wrote the original, but
he City on the Edge of Forever.
Forever. Yeah, he did write that. He wrote. Yeah, look him up. He was suing 100 people a week. He sued like Marvel and successfully won, and then got every single. And to make sure that they weren't copying his ideas, they had to send him every single comic they ever made in history, forever. So he was like, can you imagine? It's like, oh my God. When he was alive, I never missed a talk of his. That guy was insane. And talk about he was a super evil genius. He was amazing. Anyhow, it'll probably, you're right. It's going to settle out of court. Evil genius will relinquish the rights, and they'll get
a payday of some type,
200,000 or something, or 150.
Like probably, although on
their,
at least on their statement, they've made some claims that are interesting if they're just hoping for a payday, or if they think that that's what they're going to go for. Well, they said that it was not about the money, but they want the product to release.
Right. But
so it makes it harder for them to accept to spin it as a win if they get the money and not the product.
Well, it can be, because what they'll have to do is they'll say, hey, look, we estimate that this product would have made us, I'm just going to make this up, $500,000. Plus, we had to stop work on all these other projects, which ends up costing us $250,000. So Netflix, you need to pay us $750,000 minimum, because that's our damages, and you have to pay our damages. And of course, Netflix will say, we'll give you half that. Take it or leave it. Or we go to court, and you can take your chances in court. And then they'll have to say, Evil Genius will have to probably go, fine, we'll just take it, because it's cheaper to take half now than to spend, tens of thousands, $100,000 in court, and you might win or you might lose it all. So, because it's a 50-50, you don't know. So, and it could take years. That's probably what's going to happen, because that's what always happens in the end.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. I mean, I certainly respect what they're saying about how they say, like, we just want our hard work and the work of our designers to see the light of day. But I mean, there's a lot of projects that end up, getting worked on and never released. And I don't know. It's a very weird. I'll be interested to see how this actually ends up coming out. But although I will say this, I'd never heard of this game company or these game systems until you sent me the link, Steven. So
there's that's the thing. It's like, this thing got so much press that Netflix should be paying Evil Genius.
Yeah. I knew about them from before that, because I guess I talked to people
everywhere.
I talked to people who worked for them in the past. So
not about Evil Genius. I'm talking about the movie. Did you know it was
the
coming
movie?
out?
I actually didn't know about
now you do.
Until then. But then again, I didn't know about Bird Box until you just told me about it.
Well, there you go. But my point is
and
like,
it is apparently one of the most popular things ever known.
Yes, but the point is, like, I didn't even know about Rebel Moon. I knew, but I didn't know the release date. And then I saw this, and I'm like, oh yeah, I heard about this, and now I'm like all psyched. And I watched the preview, I watched the trailer, I watched everything. I was like,
I did see the trailer for Rebel Moon, I think the day it came out, but not because of any particular interest, just because YouTube's like, you're a nerd, you like movies, so.
Well, you are a nerd, and you do like movies.
Not anymore, though. I think movies are all terrible.
Movies, yeah, suck.
I'm trying to think of the last great movie,
I'll tell you the best movie, I was just saying this to my friends, best movie I saw in 2023, by far. Dungeons and Dragons. Best movie.
It was a good movie. I enjoyed it. I
loved it. It's been on cable. I think I've seen it 50 times. It's on cable like all the time. It's better every time I watch it.
I've watched it now.
So
I watched it on Paramount Plus, which my dad has for Star Trek.
Yeah. It's so good. It's so good. It's such
it was well done.
Made movie. I told you my brother's really good friends with the producer and writer of that.
Yeah.
And he was just talking to him about it. I'm going to try to get him on the show.
Yeah, you mentioned that before.
Yeah.
But was it as good as Pirates of the Caribbean, though?
No. Well, Pirates of the Caribbean is genius.
I guess my issue is still that they played it for laughs. D&D doesn't have to be a joke.
It doesn't. You could try to be serious about it, like the other D&D movies that didn't do as well. But
the parts that everybody was like, "Oh, I love that part," was like, like when the paladin walks over the rock, or
but they didn't play it for. That's the thing. They didn't.
When the illusion spell starts to fail and the person starts, melting.
They did not play it for laughs. They played it seriously.
No,
and then people laughed because it was so deadpan. Like when the paladin walks over that was just him. That's his character.
That was
Chris,
meant to be for laughs.
No, Chris
Of
Pine
course,
is
it was
literally
meant for laughs.
Chris
but-
Pine is literally sitting there going like, "Oh, he's
Yeah.
just walking straight. I wonder if he's going to go over that." Oh,
Yeah,
nope,
but
yep,
you
he's
know
going
what?
over the rock. It
Yeah.
was so like it felt so out of place. I guess I wanted
Mm.
an action adventure movie, and it wasn't really that. It was more of like a comedy heist.
It was
It
more of a
was.
comedy heist.
It was a comedy heist because it was a comedy heist because
Yeah,
they were
so-
going. You know what?
It was
Yeah,
meant to
but-
be a heist. It even had people who were
But in today's
doing different parts of
environment-
the heist at different times.
Yeah, but in this environment, if they made it a dead serious action movie like that,
Oh, it would not have done nearly
it
as
would
well.
not, it would have totally bombed. And more importantly, you can do that for the second or the third. In fact, if you watch some action movies like I'd say Mission Impossible, like they start off kind of goofy, some of these movies, and then they get more serious as they go along. Because once they introduce the world, they can, believe it or not, instead of loosen up, they tighten up. They go the other way, and you can do that. So it's pretty interesting. Yeah, the Marvel formula kind of broke every studio's proverbial brain, and everything
Right, because
had
they
to
were all
use-
like, yeah.
Right. Well, that's what I'm going to say. If you watch Pirates of the Caribbean, they do it correctly, and they also, to be fair, that the soundtrack is superior, the acting is superior, the stories are superior, the complexity of the stories are superior, and the camera work and framing is some of the best I've ever seen. Like they really know what they were doing, and practical effects with CGI. No one even does that. Now everything's all CGI. They did both, and that was a big deal. But yeah, watch it again. You'll see. Because it's funny, but they don't play it for laughs. They're very serious. You know what? It's like One Piece. I don't know if you saw One Piece on Netflix. That One Piece, everyone's like, why was it so successful? And one of the main reasons is because everyone in that world is dead serious. Like this is their world. They're not winking at the camera like, isn't this silly? Isn't this goofy, this world? Like, no, this is our world. This is where we live. And the pirate who dresses up like a cat, yeah, she dresses up like a cat. What of it? Like you're like, okay, cool. Did you watch it, Derek? It's
No, of course I didn't.
Oh my god, it's so good. Some of the best acting I've seen. Some of the best casting I've ever seen. Everyone was cast perfectly.
I more or less
And it's all physical studios. The sets
despise
alone.
anime.
It doesn't matter. It's not anime. I'm talking about the
Well-
live action. I'm talking about the live action.
Yeah, I know, but it's a live action derivative
Oh,
of an anime.
it's so good. It's so good. It was the acting's really good. And I also do like Japanese storytelling. The best thing about Japanese storytelling, there's no Mary Sue's in Japanese storytelling. It's
There's
that
no Mary Sue's.
Yes.
Isn't that like
What?
the entire point of like entire genres of anime?
No.
Yes.
No.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, well, okay, fine.
Yes.
They're not instantly good. They constantly get defeated all the time, and they
You're
have to
talking
go to
about
mentors.
some subgenres. There really are ones where they're instantly good.
Oh, okay, okay. Let me rephrase
Like
that.
One Punch Man is just one example of someone who's
Okay.
he's just good and he just wins constantly every time.
Well,
There's
he's a
actually
Mary
wide
Sue.
variety of them
Okay, let me rephrase that. There's no Mary Sue in One Piece.
in One Piece.
Let me
Okay.
rephrase that, which I
Yes.
like.
Thumbs
Because,
up. Thumbs up.
Because you're like, oh, he's gonna win, and then he loses constantly, and then he has to get better, and I like that. Like right now, it's like, oh, they're just instantly good, and why? Because they are. It's like, ugh, enough of this, enough, but
Right.
enough of that. But a
anyways.
lot of manga, a lot of the Japanese manga does go through the standard video game trope of good, I'm very good at it, but then I get beaten and I have to level up and then I can beat that boss and
Yep.
go to the next one. And I'm just saying, you're right, not all. I
No,
did
the
overestimate.
classic shonen
Very-
progression formula
very
is definitely, haha, look at my unbeatable powers. I'm the strongest. I
Right.
beat every. Oh,
Mhm.
wait, this thing is like unbeatable. I can't beat it with my stuff.
Right.
It beat me. I'm hurt. Oh, what can I do? I'll learn a new technique /
Correct.
get a new weapon or get a new thing. Now I can beat that one. Yes, I beat it. Oh, and I beat several other things after that. Oh, wait, no, but now I ran into something else that this one doesn't work against. What can I do? I'll learn a new power. And yes, that is the
100%.
cycle.
Right.
That is
And
standard.
it manages to do that all while normalizing pedophilia and promoting unsafe and unhealthy relationship practices, which is one of the reasons I don't really like anime, by the way. And I understand not every anime is like that. I know.
Well, there's
I
part
know.
of there's a lot of okay, that's a whole Japanese culture thing. Sort of a whole subculture, subgenre
and
itself.
I am not making any judgments on that culture, on that art form, or the people who support them. I'm just simply saying.
Well, do you know what I just watched before? I was just watching right before we went on live.
Was it One Piece?
No, it was American Graffiti.
Okay, the 1973
George Lucas production of kids basically riding around in cars, finding things to do, because that's what they used to do back then in the 50s. And wow, you want to see gender norms, what they were used to be like. And this is the 70s to the 50s.
Sure.
People will lose their brains watching that if you're sensitive to that.
Well, you know, this is where the terminology hasn't aged well, right?
Well, it's not even how it aged well. That's just how it was back then. I mean,
right. But
the 50s especially, it's like
right. But that doesn't necessarily mean it was a good thing. You know?
I never said it was a good thing, but I was saying, but what was considered normal. And watch 70s TV, and that will watch Fantasy Island, Love Boat, or Chips, and it will melt your brain.
You don't even have to go that far back. You could go back to films from the early 2000s, and people are or TV shows.
Yeah, actually,
and people are routinely called things today that we would pretty much consider a slur. So, you know, by and large, you know, society.
Oh yeah, there's all sorts of messed up stuff. Although I seem to remember something about like Love Boat having a trans character that, given that it was Love Boat and it was in the 70s, was not done as terribly as you might have expected that character to be done in the 70s.
Well,
but I did not watch the show. I did not see the character, and that is just something I heard in passing. So I could be very wrong, and it could be.
Keep in mind,
be as problematic as you expect everything in the 70s to be.
Well, just to give you an idea of the 70s, is that what was it? What was the John Ritter show? Three's Company was the #1 show in America, and that show is beyond hot garbage. That show is unwatchable, and it was #1. So there you go. But
it is a horrible show.
It is a horrible show. So I don't know how we got into. We always get into weird diatribes, but here's
you know, it's the end of the show.
Actually, it is, because I got to go soon, because I got
to wrap. So.
I got another show coming up. But did that answer the question? Basically, it sounds like Netflix is either just killing this because they want to kill it,
or they're trying.
They're trying to kill it. Yeah, but they can't do. Evil Genius has no recourse. The problem with Evil Genius is they can't put out anything they worked on, because that will get them sued and they'll lose. So they're literally stuck.
They have to go to court.
Yeah.
That's all that they can do.
And all they can do is go to court and say, you owe us what they'll have to do two things. This is what sucks, is the Evil Genius to say, prove no, we did not breach it.
Right.
And two, not only did we not breach it, but this is how much money we lost by not putting out this book, and you owe us money. So it's really bad for them. I feel terrible
they didn't breach it, if they prove that they didn't breach it,
they can then get damages.
They can get damages.
But then they have to prove it, and then that's like a whole pain in the neck. And this could take years. I feel
like the weird part about it is that being in the news for being sued could be free advertising for Netflix that is more expensive than the court case. Yeah, or sorry, that makes more money for them than the court case cost them to pay for the lawyers.
I mean, you know, at the end of the day, you know, I don't fuck Netflix. You know, I mean, I'm not going to support some big company over some small group of independent RPG creators who are, you know, obviously trying to get their product made, which is great. Maybe they entered into a foolish arrangement. I can't say that whether they did.
We don't know the exact terms,
right? Yeah. And I mean, obviously, you know, they feel like they need to win the court of public opinion rather than necessarily the legal court. So maybe they don't have a whole lot of legal proceeding, you know, legal ground to stand on. So either way, it does sound like they got, you know, screwed over, which sucks, you know, and I certainly hope that this brings a lot of light of attention to whatever they're trying to do. I personally don't feel like Netflix is going to somehow magically capitulate and let them release the RPG. So I think you're more likely to see if anything, a lawsuit does come and Netflix settles out of court, and at least they get their payday. But I mean, I hate to say it, but it's like, it's one of those situations where, like, yes, a group of people can rise up and overcome. Like, OGL is a great example of that. But this is one of those weird situations where it's like you don't have this kind of like fervent fan base for a movie that hasn't even come out yet. You know what I mean? Like, no one feels like something's being taken away from them. It's just some small press company that, quite frankly, a lot of people haven't heard of, and they're kind of like, we got fucked over by our business partner. And it's kind of like, yeah, I mean, that sucks. I really hope you're the best, and I hope you get your payday, and I hope the work that you guys put in for the next last 6 months, 7 months, 8 months doesn't get thrown out down the toilet. But
isn't it ironic that it's for a movie that's about people rising
Rebelling.
up to overcome an evil empire?
That is, I missed that, but yes, that is, somebody
Right?
they should be lean into that. Be like, we need to be like the good lightsaber lady instead of the bad lightsaber guy.
I feel bad.
I just want to say one last rant. Star Wars was never about lightsabers. I still maintain to this day that the coolest lightsaber moment.
It completely killed the character and went up against everything that was built up until that moment. I know what you're going to say.
What am I going to say?
Oh, when he took the lightsaber, when Luke took the lightsaber and threw it over his shoulder and threw it away. And he walked away from everything he was taught and everything he stood for.
When Luke threw away his lightsaber in episode 6.
That's what I just said. In episode 6. Wait.
I thought you were talking about episode 8.
Episode 8. Okay.
I'm talking about episode 6. I'm talking about when Luke is fighting his father.
Yes.
Darth Vader. Yes. And the Emperor keeps referring to him as my pupil, my student. And he strikes down his father. Yes. And he sees that he could kill him.
Right.
And he chooses not to. And instead he throws his lightsaber away, and he turns and he realized that he wasn't a Jedi. Because, Obi-Wan told him, and to become a Jedi, you must face your father. And that didn't mean, he didn't realize it until that moment. It didn't mean to kill him. It meant to save him.
Correct.
And the weapon of a Jedi, Yoda tells you this, right? Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. It was never about the lightsaber. It was always about the Force, and it was about their empathy and their morality. And when Luke threw away, he turns to, he goes, "No, you're wrong, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me." And the whole time, the Emperor's been like, "You're just my student." And he goes, "So be it, Jedi." And then he goes, "I'm going to kill you," because he knows he lost.
Right.
In that moment, he lost.
Yeah. You're 100% right. In fact, yes. And the whole transition of him going from white to gray to black, and the costuming and everything. Yes, the original trilogy, for all the problems that there was, especially in the third movie, for various reasons, it still was a masterpiece. I thought you meant episode 8, which is beyond garbage. And I was like, that destroyed the character, because the only way they can make the new characters look good is they have to tear down the old ones. And that is the oldest and the weakest and the sloppiest trope in the book. And that is bad screenwriting. And
if it was on, I might watch Force Awakens, but I will pretty much never watch 8 or 9 again.
It's not 8. They're terrible. Terrible.
I mean, they were all bad. They were all bad.
8 and 9. It's just 9 was they just gave up. It's like we just gave up.
I just can't get over the chase scene in 8 where supposedly they're going as fast as they can in one direction, chasing each other, and somebody just leaves in a small, weaker ship with worse work capacity, goes off to do a caper, and then comes back.
Right.
Back to their still fleeing.
That whole sequence made absolutely no sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
And Smike Guy is completely correct. 8 was rough until 9 came out, and then 8 became retroactively better. That is completely correct.
Well, 9 is one of the worst movies ever.
9 is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life.
It's like up there. And then the more, and basically, and this is really the big issue of what's been happening and why Hollywood is dying, is because they keep trying to go back to the well and bring back new characters, and they're not respecting the original source material, and they're just trying to work on member berries. And unfortunately, people like us don't love these worlds because of these characters. We love the worlds because of the worlds, not the individual characters. And by putting in characters which we love and then violating their arcs and then violating the worlds, you doubly pissed us off because you just killed everything. And you keep doing it because you can't think of anything new. And that's why these movies are failing.
Well, and this gets into the whole thing, like, with Last Jedi, where it's like, you had, oh God, what's his name? Rian Johnson.
Yes. Rian Johnson.
And his whole thing was like, basically being like, I'm going to completely subvert these people's expectations. I'm going to take the things that they love about Star Wars and shit on them. And that'll be a really compelling film. And it's like, no, you don't understand what this is about at all.
Yeah.
And you're making a horrible film. Rogue One was good. I couldn't tell you the name.
Was fine.
I couldn't tell you the name of a single character from Rogue One at all.
Rogue One was fine.
But I thought it was fine. But I mean,
Andor is fantastic.
The Han Solo movie was terrible. 7, 8, and 9 were not great. 7 was bad. 8 was horrible, and 9, I almost walked out of the movie.
The Solo movie sucks, except I do like the Kessel Run scene a lot. That scene was awesome.
But anyways, so
yeah, there's a lot of problems with those movies.
Well, and with Star Wars
Well, I will say, well, actually, I'll give you one more. Did you watch the new Rings of Power at all?
No, but listen, I've heard enough.
Yeah, right, I didn't watch it at all, too. And I heard from everyone I trust is that the big problem with the Rings of Power is that it's not that they invent new characters and they invent like new worlds and stuff. Is that they're disrespecting the original source material, which was written by someone in the 30s based off World War I. And it's like, and then they were putting modern sensibilities and ideals up against something that it's they're just not respecting the world book and the world canon. And that is, you want to come up with new stuff, that's fine, but respect the freaking world. And a lot of these problems, a lot of these new movies, they just don't respect the world. And that's the secret. And by the way, you want to see a good feminist story arc? Pirates of the Caribbean, okay? The damsel in distress starts off the movie literally fainting because she's confined in a bonnet, a harness. So literally womanhood and the society norms are being thrust on her and faints from it. And by the end of the trilogy, she's the pirate queen.
She's the pirate queen.
She's the pirate queen. That's an arc, baby. That's how you do it right, baby. That's the correct way. You don't force it. And she earned it. She earned it over 3 movies. And she had a lot of problems. It wasn't magic.
Well, that's called having good writing and having a plan.
Exactly. It was so much better. Like, watch that, and then that. I will promise you watch that now, and then suddenly, well, if you want to destroy all your, subjective objectivism of any modern movies, you watch that and you'll say, yeah, everything today sucks. Because you realize, wow, this is so much better, and it was done 20 years ago. And by the way, they're rebooting the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Good luck with that, because good luck.
Right. Good luck finding another Johnny Depp. I mean,
rebooting a movie series based on a ride from Disney World.
Well,
because it was so popular that they wanted to reboot it. Well, it's totally makes sense because it was a popular and good series.
Well, for what it's worth, just so you know, that script was not Pirates. It was a different script, and they do this all the time. It was a script that just was a very good script. And they just rebranded it the Pirates of the Caribbean. In fact, it literally has, if you took out the word Pirates of the Caribbean and took out a few specific scenes that were taken from the ride, like the dog with the keys and stuff, it's just a pirate movie with Johnny Depp. And that's it. It had nothing to do with Pirates of the Caribbean, except that it had a title. But that movie, I remember watching that in the theater, and I just kept saying to myself, oh my God, this is so good. I couldn't even believe what I was watching because I thought it was going to be garbage.
I thought it was good.
Really
good. That they had smart writing.
Really, really good writing. And then watch it again. The action sequence, which is done with practical effects, especially in the second and third, is really well done. And action scenes are, especially when you see the CGI crap that's coming out today, where you can literally fall asleep because you don't even know what's happening on the screen because it's all blur. And then you watch this and you're like, I can tell everything that's happening. It's out in the open. It's bright. And everything looks real because it is. It's like, that's right. Top Gun was such a big hit. It's like, wow, it looks like they're really in fighter planes pulling 5Gs and getting their faces slammed on the walls. Oh, that's right, because they are. They actually did film that in Fighter Pilots. Yeah. And those poor actors had to keep going up 10 times a day and were vomiting every time they had to go down.
I'm not going to I saw that on a cruise. I never saw it in theaters. I saw it on a cruise ship for the first time, like a movie night on the cruise ship, you know, out on the pool deck. They've got the big screen. So not probably the best movie watching experience.
No, definitely not.
But that movie was amazing.
Movies. I was literally by the way, it's a complete retelling of Star Wars. Think about it. They have to go through and they shoot and they get away. I'm like, it's Star Wars, and they have to get away.
I mean,
exactly the same.
They somehow made a unique story that stood on its own.
Yes,
while still having so many amazing. Like, you could watch that movie and never have watched the first film.
No, it doesn't matter.
Enjoy it. But if you had, and you know who Goose, you know, and you know who Goose is. It carries that weight so much.
I know.
I was shocked, and the movie edited. I mean, it flew by.
So good. And the scenes when they're in the cop, I was when he does.
I was thinking about the scene where he does the test and shows that it can be done. And he's pulling those
scene, right?
And he's like, you know, his face is like melting out of him.
And he's going like, oof, oof, and he's going as hard as he can. And you see him slamming into the walls. I was breathless when I was in the theater. I was literally on the edge of my seat, and I couldn't breathe because I was so excited and terrified watching it. Because I'm like, he's really doing this. Now I realized they weren't really down there and that was fake, but he was really in that cockpit, and they're really
is a
going
movie.
fast, and they were getting slammed all over the place.
Yeah. So, anyways, all
right, I gotta go. Well, I'm gonna. Are you gonna see the creator? I heard things on the creator, but whatever. I mean, it's better than average. I heard. How about
at this point? I don't really watch it. I am gonna watch the rest of season 2 of Wheel of Time because. I was a big critic of season 1, and I think rightfully so. But season 2, even they are going in a very different direction. Gotten
really good.
It has gotten really good, so I still need to catch up to that. So.
I am not watching. I've not seen season 1 or season 2.
That's the only thing I have accidentally because I have Amazon Prime, so I do have Amazon Prime.
I did hear they very specifically show the skyscrapers and old aspects of Earth to show that this is. Super post-apocalyptic, that it's not like, oh, it sort of takes place on Earth like 50,000 years in the future. It's like, oh no, it does. It's like it does take place.
They're much more overt with it than they were in the books.
I like that.
I think it's good too because I think it really kind of
and the Sword of Shannara did that too, by the way, because one of the books
Shannara definitely did that too.
Well, one of the books. It was like Elfstones of Shannara, not Elfstones, the like Scions of Shannara, the second trilogy or the third one.
Who's the author of that? Terry
Brooks.
Terry Brooks. He actually, one of them, they go to a city. They actually go to like New York, and they have to like get something, get one of the stones. And I was like, oh, that was awesome. And they didn't understand anything. I was like, this is great. Like, I like that when it comes, it goes so far in the future that it's gone to fantasy. And what our world is the past. That I love stuff like that. So
cool.
All right. Well, if anyone wants to see me over on Twitch, I will be on Twitch, and
then tomorrow,
there we go.
If I'm going to be doing another Pathfinder 2 stream, we're going to be talking about what are some of the best runes for your armor, your weapons. What are some of the best items to use up on your very limited investiture slots available to you, and in terms of providing you with the best bang for your buck.
Are they really that limited though? You get a lot of them. Most people don't run out.
Oh, please. Incredible investiture is basically a must-have feat because you got to have 12. 10's not enough.
I've never gone up to 10.
Most people don't run out. People like Derik and me run out, but most people don't run out.
Most of the time, like one of my first priorities with a character is getting 10 invested items because
that is why people like Derik and me run out.
No one ever runs out in any of my games ever.
Oh yes. So I'm not saying you need to have all 10 by like level 1 or 2. That's probably not going to happen. But by level 10, I think you would have. I mean, basically, when you're level 10, it's now it's upgrading time, right? As you move through. In some cases, it's a natural upgrade because there's like a greater version of an item, and it's just strictly a better upgrade. But other times, you're like, oh no, this item's not really pulling its weight anymore, and I do need to get something, better. So, but by that time, your charisma is usually 16, and then you can take incredible investiture, and then you get 2 more free
God.
slots.
I don't know
So,
anyone
all right.
who's ever taken that, but
What? That's one of my big six.
scared to death. That one's a good one. That one's
Oh,
been
well,
one of the
no,
best.
But that's not a general feat, though. That's a
That's
skill
true.
feat.
That's true.
That's true. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people take incredible investiture or do the thing that you and I do, Derek.
Oh, that's a shame.
Well, also my guys, they're the same ones who forgot to like upgrade all their weapons to +2. They're like,
Yeah, that
they're
is-
like level 14. They're like, should we
That's
have
fair
+2 weapons by now? I'm like, dude, let's go through all your like, it's like you need to upgrade everything.
Yeah,
you guys are way behind the curve, like way
Um,
behind.
yeah, awesome. You're right. The thaumaturge gets all those.
Yep,
Bonus
they get
slots.
the feat to get even more.
I-
Well, you know
I
what?
wrote that feat for thaumaturge.
You know what, I
Because I
actually
like
would-
investing lots of items.
You know what
That's
I would like?
that's
I would
awesome.
like
That's
maybe you and Mark to do a show to go over
Your group's character sheets.
no, the Eldamon.
Yeah.
No, Eldamon.
Oh,
The Eldamon. I'd be curious to see what you think, and then you maybe do a little show on your channel.
well, I'd have to take a
Go
look at it
over
first.
your character sheet.
Yeah,
That's
that
hilarious.
too. You go over the character. You do this. Not my
Derek
character
and Mark
sheets.
discuss what their problems are.
Oh.
Yeah,
in
no.
the- in
Oh,
the
these
no.
guys'
for
character
combat
sheets. They
character
no, their
sheets.
sheets are like their sheets are you would cry if you read them because
I probably.
because
be
they
like-
take the
question would be
flaws
whether Derek
all
would
over
be
the place.
tears of blood or regular tears.
Right.
Well, the funny thing is, they were like really struggling, and then we're like, okay, we're gonna upgrade your armor, we're gonna upgrade your weapons, and then they went to their next fight. They just slaughtered everything. They're like, oh my god, it's so much easier.
Look, I'm not trying to say that like you absolutely need a +2 potency rune on your weapon at level 10. You should. But
They were level
you don't have
14.
to.
I'm
But
gonna
it-
say that not having that
And they were
or
level
your greater
14.
striking at level 14 is pretty bad.
By
And they didn't have
14,
+2 armor, and they didn't have what was the other rune?
I mean, +2 armor is at least closer to their level at level 14 than +2
I think
weapon.
+2 armor is 11.
Well,
Yeah, I think
you know
it-
what they all did? They did just
I think it
last
is.
session. They all got keen, and I was like, "Oh, that's gonna change your life, baby," because they ate so much gold. They're like, "Keen everybody." So-
I mean, again, I'm used to people who basically, especially in our Discord, these are people who all wield mauls or warhammers that have greater crushing runes and things like that. So
no, these guys are they don't care. It's so like, oh
Like, you
yeah,
you
They're
haven't
like-
lived until you crit somebody. They're automatically prone. They're now automatically clumsy too. So they have a -4 penalty to their AC. They're also enfeebled too. And of course, they're prone. So they have a -4 to their attack roll. Oh, and your frost weapon made them slow. So now they're prone, slowed, -4 AC, -4 to attack roll.
I would ban them from my table. By the way,
What are you talking about? Those are just that is
That's a
literally
regular thing.
regular thing. That's common. That's 2 items out of the core rulebook. All right, greater crushing is from Secrets of Magic, maybe, but you could just take greater fearsome room and almost does the same thing.
I think that's why I play with my guys because they're.
I'm just saying
they don't bother with any of that. They're just like,
they don't bother with anything. That's the game.
no, not to them. It's not to them. It's funny. They have more fun getting gold than loot.
But to do what with
To
it?
wear it around their neck as a necklace. Haven't we gone through
Because
this?
it's bling, baby, and that's how you do a successful episode. I brought it all the way around. Thank
We
you,
did.
everyone.
We started.
I'll be here
we
all.
ended, and now Steven has to go. 'cause
I gotta
he's got
go. That
his
was as
Foundry
good as
thing
it
later
gets.
on.
For
All right.
everyone who's been here from the beginning, you're welcome.
All right, take care, everybody.
See you next week.
Bye.